What Putin wants is first a Ukraine that would be ruled by a pro-Russian leader. So the change of government would be something that Putin would see as a kind of a compromise from Ukrainian side. The so-called neutrality status, so guarantee that Ukraine and other post-Soviet countries would never join NATO, which is also not possible at the moment, and all other formats of diplomatic talks and negotiations, I believe, will be rejected by the Russian side. It's important to understand that what happens in Ukraine does not stay in Ukraine. What happens in the Black Sea does not stay in the Black Sea. This is about regional security. It's not only about Ukraine. It's not about the eastern regions of Ukraine, but not even about Ukraine itself. It's about European security. It's about changing international order, because what we are seeing now, it's absolutely unprecedented. The violation of all possible international laws, norms of the security architecture in Europe, which has been in place since the end of the Second World War. This is what is happening now. And while Ukrainians are defending themselves, they're basically defending the European security and the rights of other states for their sovereignty, for their liberal democracies, and for their ways of living as they prefer it to do. Because if you listen to Putin's speeches before that, when he was talking about Russian Empire, about Soviet Union and so on, and later on you will hear that the idea behind Putin's attacks is not to kind of provide support to someone in the eastern regions of Ukraine, but actually to get back to the world where there is a Soviet Union with all former Soviet republics, and he's basically doing it step by step with occupation of territories in Georgia, with occupation basically now annexation of Belarus and occupation of Ukrainian territory. So now next step is a full-scale attack on Ukraine. What we are expecting as Ukraine from our international partners now is not probably boots on the ground, because we are well aware, we are quite realistic about what we can ask for and what we cannot. But those, the harsh sanctions, the sanctions which would be a united response from the European Union and from NATO countries, humanitarian assistance, financial assistance, providing defensive weapons to Ukraine for us to be able to defend our lands, and also, of course, the formation of the so-called anti-Russian coalition, which would be not an aggressive bloc, of course, but rather a defensive, to defend European values, to defend Ukrainian sovereignty and Ukrainian territorial integrity. So for Turkey to have Russia not only stepping up its military presence on land and on sea, but also becoming a new kind of a Russian empire or resurrection of the Soviet Union would be something that would present a major security threat for Turkey itself. So what we can do now is to provide, of course, diplomatic support to basically isolate Russia on all international platforms, because this is not a country which should be and which has a right to be a part of the civilized world anymore. Economic sanctions, withdrawal of Russia from a SWIFT system, and of course sectoral sanctions, such as those that will target the defense sector, for example, the military sector of Russia. But also those might be very practical steps, like, for example, the closure of the straits, which Ukraine has been asking for from the Turkish side, because you know that with the Montreux Convention, there is a possibility for Turkey to close the straits for the passage of warships and of Russian ships into the Black Sea, for example. So those would be a bunch of diplomatic, but also deterrence steps that would show Russia that it's not only Ukraine which is standing versus Russian aggression, but also the whole civilized world, European countries, NATO countries, which support Ukraine. And I believe that concerns and even talks about sanctions definitely will not be enough for Ukraine, because we are actually dying here for Ukraine, but also for Europe. So I believe that we deserve a much stronger support in very practical terms, again, starting from defensive weapons and financial support and economic support, and up to support in like for example, countering cyber attacks, because this is again a hybrid warfare. So it's not only about the military dimension, but also cyber attacks, all kind of disruptive activities, subversive operations, and so on. So this is where Ukraine waits for support from its Western partners.